Oh, at this point it's gonna be super freezing cold because, relatively speaking, we now need to worry about the forms of ice physics every once in a while, but regardless of such though, that's as far as usually the case. Hey, what is up ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Tiana here once again, and I am back for yet again for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos once again. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Banjo-Kazooie, Grunty's Revenge for the Game Boy Advance. So, last time, we have essentially managed to able to 100% through everything in terms of Spiller's Harbor, despite the fact that we did manage to backtrack a lot for the sake of the forms of this entire level, most notably because, well, you know, with that well-hidden 5-pack music notes, that usually appears on the forms of behind the actual Jinjo statue. So as a result though, yeah, it is very easy to miss if you have a first time playing a game, but regardless of everything else though, we did manage to accomplish it. So today, for this video, is the fact that we're going to be moving on to the final platforming level, and that's what appears to be Freezing Furnace. Which is basically, if you couldn't tell, it's like a fire and ice world. So because of that though, and also we're miles able to stumble across our final move we can able to learn. And that's what appears to be another set of those eggs that we can able to actually just to shoot on. So at the very least, that's something is usually I'm really looking forward to, because either way though, that sense that we've actually learned every single moves now. So because of this though, we're now able to actually introduce into ourselves the fire eggs, which think of like the fire eggs from the previous game, Banjo-Kazooie, except the fact that the biggest difference is it's, well, although there aren't any that much differences between the forms of Banjo-Kazooie counterparts than this, because I'm pretty sure it functions pretty much the same way. So as a result though, yeah, there's not much else to really say about this for the most part. So, and as far as I'm aware, is the fact that not only that we're going to be experiencing the final world in the whole entire game where it comes to platforming and stuff like that, and also huge emphasis on collectathon and stuff like that. I think also we can probably expect that later on, as soon as we're able to actually complete everything on this world, maybe we can probably able to head back onto Bad Magic Bayou. So because of that though, because we still need to find this very, you know what I mean, the last, you know, Jiggy in the game. But either way though, let's get this thing to it by, oh boy, fishing stuff again. In fact, this will be the final time we're going to be doing the fishing challenges, because, well, as far as I'm aware, not only this is the third and the final time doing the fishing minigame, but also out of all the actual fishing challenges I actually just managed to win through, this one is not only kind of difficult, but also is very luck-based as well. Because if you couldn't tell already, it's the fact that, as you can tell, that we can't able to actually see those fishes visibility-wise. So as a result though, it's all about a massive guess. So as a result, I think I was off by 2 of those red fishes I need to grab. Or of course, just like in the forms of how it does it on Bad Magic Bayou level, and that is the fact that if you accidentally manage to grab the green snippets, then basically that is the fact that you lose a bit of your health. So you're gonna have to watch out for that. Especially noticeable, I don't think you can able to actually dodge those things, because obviously since that the fishing hook was actually going to be able to actually launch back it straight towards you. So yeah, it is very impossible to able to dodge that, but it knows what it is for the most part. But I'm telling you what though, after I'm done with this particular challenge though, then thank God we don't need to worry about doing that godforsaken the fishing segments all over again, because let me tell you, I'm still not a big fan of those specific challenges like this, because sometimes it can be frustrating, especially noticeable in this particular variation's case. So, because again, not only do you not able to actually see any of those fishes swimming about in terms of the forms of trying to swim underwater, but get this, it's all luck based and everything, because, well, sometimes you never know where the red fishies are, and most of the time you were able to actually stumble across the forms of those green snippets that you definitely need to avoid at all times, so that way you don't need to necessarily try to able to actually get hit multiple times with that forsaking, you know what I mean, with the actual guesswork. So, but there we go, we've managed able to complete that. So in this case, we can probably expect that we can able to get ourselves our first Jiggy on this world so far. So it looks like we are getting pretty decent at it though, despite the fact that it's getting slower at the beginning. But hopefully though, until later on though, that we can probably expect that we can able to actually obtain not only some of those remainings of those musical notes, but also the last few jiggies we need to get. Although, as far as I'm aware, I think I already mentioned about this ever since during the course of, well, let's just say in new forms of in the previous week ago, since on Thursday to be more specifically, that you don't need to necessarily try to able to get all the jiggies in the game, similar to the forms of how it does in Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie. Well, mind you, in the forms of in Banjo-Kazooie, you need to collect a ridiculous amount of those music notes, not able to progress throughout the game, especially noticeable if you really want to able to actually access to other worlds, like, you know, in a future time and stuff like that. Well, you know, in new forms of in Banjo-Tooie, that's basically though that the only thing you can get on the let's just say on the Xbox Live version of that particular game, or not only the original but also Tooie game as well. So as a result though, you can able to get yourself some rewards based off from gamer pictures and stuff like that into your profile on certain Xbox devices and all that stuff though. So yeah, you get the idea of how this is going. Oh, and by the way, something's worth mentioning is the fact that we actually stumbled across those little specific tornadoes. If you manage to get involved with that tornado, by the way, basically though, is the fact that it actually forces you to able to lose some of the items. Specifically, as you probably already noticed, that every time you're able to actually get in contact with the forms of the wind, basically though, is the fact that you lose a couple of items. So yeah, probably best to able to avoid those at all costs. So because of that though, until specifically you're trying to save some of the stuff, enjoying any forms of in later on, either the boss battle, or certain puzzle segments, or in some cases in certain platforming. So, oh boy. And of course, that since this is going to be a combination of, let's just say, in fire and ice world, because the reason why I pointed things out, because kind of think about it though, is the fact that this world does remind me of the similar vibe as new forms of Hellfire Peaks from the likes of in Banjo-Tooie, except the fact that we actually start the actual world up by going through winter environments instead of lava environments from the likes of in Banjo-Tooie. So of course that the actual exploration is still the factor on the forms of this entire level as it is. So, well, despite the fact that, relatively speaking, it's just the fact that with all that, you know what I mean, with the depth perception feels a bit slightly iffy to me, especially noticeable about the fact that, well, not only because of how the fact that this video might actually consider this to be one of the longest parts we ever done for the sake of the forms of this entire game so far. But get this though, is the fact that prepare yourselves with the forms of a lot of game overs, by the way. Enjoy the course of let's just say whenever we get to the second half of this entire world, that whenever we get into the forms of the actual the lava segments right there. Well, not just yet though, because as you can tell we need to use the talent shot very fast until we get ourselves our next jiggy. In this case, jiggy number 2, in terms of the forms of freezing furnace. So that's something is usually as far as I like to classify for something, but hey, at least it's something. So yeah, a few things I want to explain from this point today, and that is the fact that today is the forms of the 26th of July today, in this case in 2022 today. So we're going to discuss upon the forms of some interesting news for this point, and that is the fact that, well, these 3 conversations I'm also able to discuss on right now are actually entirely based off from those specific anniversaries for a certain amount of stuff. Like, for example, I think we actually managed to have our Acer laptop for such a very, very long time, since 2013, so I know for the fact that we had that laptop for about 9 years now. So as a result, despite it, usually it still works most of the time, although it does have a bit of a questionable conditions, such as for instance with the forms of the clamshell is almost about to break. And on top of all that stuff though is the fact that the actual CPU is actually a bit of a struggle at points. And on top of all that stuff as well is the fact that I'm pretty certain about the fact the matter is though is the fact that, well, I honestly have no idea what could I possibly explain next, but anyway. So anyway, let's just go into the actually before we get into that, oh wait, do I have to go there? I think I should probably save it for in a moment because, well, I suppose we should probably able to do some more exploration to deal with for, you know, trying to rescue those Jinjos and all that stuff though. But I think relatively speaking about the fact the matter is though is that since we're on the final main platforming world in the entire game, so relatively speaking we can probably able to come across into ourselves kind of a cool transformation between the forms of Banjo and Kazooie, or to be more specifically, Banjo himself, and because of that though, we will probably able to actually stay tuned for that until whenever we continue proceeding for this world, basically. So, yeah, that begs the question throughout, so... And also, on top of all that stuff as well, is the fact that I'm pretty certain that when it comes to film anniversaries here and there, that I do definitely know for the fact that the Simpsons movie, well, at least until tomorrow anyway, that film will be definitely become the forms of 15 years old until tomorrow anyway, which is, you know, pretty cool, especially noticeable about the fact that I can still watch it even to this day, especially how hilariously entertaining that was. I mean, surely that the Immortal lesson was actually kind of feels a bit, well, I don't know about you, but it has been about, you know, a couple of ages ago since we actually just managed to touch upon Shadow the Hedgehog and stuff like that, apart from, well, you know what I mean. So anyways, let's go ahead and get rid of this enemy here. It's almost like a gorilla vibe. And of course, there are some more enemies you encountered for, and then we can able to expect that we can able to help, you know, trying to nab every single coin pickup as far as that's being concerned with, so... Anyway, so... Oh, jeez, I almost get cornered by the actual Yeti. Actually, can I think about it? Let's go ahead and use the fire egg right there, and now we can able to actually use the drill ground pound thingy, and that way we'll rescue the next Jinjo. And of course, if we go in here, this is where we come across into another minigame challenge, where in this one, that I think we need to collect a certain amount of those snowflakes, or snowies, as what it's called in this game in particular. So in this case though, in order to able to win a Jiggy, obviously we need to win. So in this case, we need to beat, I would say 3 players on this particular minigame, although mind you, I haven't exactly looked upon that much of, you know, with the forms of the multiplayer requirements for, let's just say with the Game Boy Advance cable link and stuff like that, like most other games at the very least, but it knows what it is for the most part, so, and it feels like we actually get into 4th right now, but it doesn't matter anyway, because sometimes that the actual AI can be pretty much a nuisance sometimes, especially noticeable about the fact that if they're trying to able to, well, you know what I mean, if they're trying to able to actually just try to sort something out for, well, I honestly have no words to say. So, basically, you have to collect, most of those, snowies right here, so that way we can able to once again aim for first, just like in the actual, the Pirate Chest, minigame, and during the course of, Big Gull Beach, at least as far as I can usually remember that particular world from, the original. Actually, no, I gotta think about it, since in here, so... Anyway, so 3 Jiggies, and only 7 more to go, or technically speaking, 8 Jiggies left, until we basically collected about... Well, fundamentally speaking, when it comes to the forms of the, how much, all those, Jiggy, collectibles you're about to be getting, well, I think I already said this already, but I might as well say this again anyway. That, well, relatively speaking, this game only has 60 of those, you know, Jiggies to collect, when it comes to forms of 10 in each world, including, Spiral Mountain as well. So here we are, onto the forms of the lava segment, which apparently this place is usually called Grunty Industries and stuff like that. I mean, usually it's kind of strange if you ask me, but regardless of such though, there's nothing we can do in here, apart from the fact that we can able to talk to this particular lady over there. So in this case though, we can able to actually expect that we can able to do some, well, some more jobs here and there. So at the very least, we need to find those golden pieces until we're able to actually fill up the actual Jiggy itself. You know, kind of like the forms of how it does it on, Glacier, Molten Mine, I think that's what the world is called. Even then though, it has been about, kind of think about it, it has been a year ago almost since I actually last played Banjo-Kazooie, because the last time we played that game was actually just about the actual, the moment where that we're waiting for the countdown of the release date for the likes of Mario Party Superstars back in the day. So as a result, I honestly have no idea why I just somehow managed able to keep on you know, forgetting things, or maybe it's probably... Oh, dang it! I think my jump button does not come out half the time. It was a bit delayed. Ah, that's bonkers. And I get a feeling I might as well die again, because, well, just like in Spiller's Harbor, there were a few bees that you must able to try to avoid, so... But the good thing is about this though is the fact that the progression does not able to actually go all the way back. So at the very least that's a good thing. So anyway, so let's go ahead and continue things on here. And I noticed there was actually a cracked floor right down there. So although I'll check more on that later, because obviously we need to find our familiar people in terms of the forms of this entire level, for the sake of the forms of well, you probably already know what this is going, so... And also, I do apologize about the fact that my commentary gets a little bit awkward again, most notably because, well, for some reason, I just have so many stupid, unlucky moments when it comes to likely having a sleep or something like that. I know for the fact that I think Maxi has already pointed things out during the course of Kirby and the Forgotten Land Let's Play. For those of you who want to check that Let's Play out, then you can. So as a result, though, that's something you need to classify that, so yeah, I can't believe until tomorrow that the Simpsons movie will be eventually become 15 years old, which, gee, time really does fly, doesn't it? So, and also on top of all that stuff though, seriously, what the heck is killing me? I just got pushed back. That's just great. Anyway, and also something's worth noting for, actually, is the fact that for those of you who lived in the UK, well, to be more specifically with... usually sometimes I hate jumps like this, because usually, relatively speaking, it's so hard to able to actually just try to judge the distance. I mean, it's just generally hard to judge the distance when it comes to the forms of jumps like this, because that was the only thing I still despise the most, but... Either way though, luckily we still have infinite amount of continues, or infinite amount of lives, just like in Banjo-Kazooie, which totally breaks the challenge, all things considered, because even then though, unlike the original game, that does have the life system, so yeah, as a result of that kind of stuff, that's honestly as far as I can usually say about it, so... Anyway, so before we leave, let me quickly double check on the specific segment in terms of, well, you know what I mean, when it comes to this particular room right here, so, although we're really getting here is the fact that with all, you know, music notes and all the other jazz, so I guess there's not much else to say about this, apart from several of those other mission objectives, or just anything else to be more specific that I just simply did not even know about at first, because, well, out of all the actual worlds in this game, that, I think this world is, as far as I'm concerned, I do know the least out of. Well, mind you, because it has been ages ago since I actually last played this game, back in 2017, as in the forms of my own time, just trying to get used to with the actual, not only for its perspective, but also with the forms of certain mechanics and all that stuff though, but I mean, relatively speaking, that's as far as I can usually just try to able to mention about certain things like that, so... Oh, and also another thing is worth mentioning for this point as well, that I was about to say, despite the fact that with the depth perception it's gone screwy right there, from that particular, you know, depth perception and stuff like that, recently, for those of you that lived in the UK, that New Super Luigi U physical version has officially become 9 years old now, so gee, I can't even believe that particular DLC for New Super Mario Bros. U, back in the day that is the fact that, well, that particular thing is almost going to become a decade old. Well, to be more specifically with the base game, and doing at some point in this November, but we still need to wait for that, and doing at some point in the next 4 months, so... Because obviously that we're on the forms of the 26th of July, in this case in 2022, so, and also that the actual weather itself is once again super good, especially noticeable because, you know, take some cream if I was about to be able to go out in beaches and all that stuff though, but hey, at least that's something to behold, so... Oh, and by the way, with that particular green slime, as you probably saw, if you dare touch any of those green gooby stuff, you die instantly. So that's something you need to classify for realizing about this. Especially noticeable for those who have a first time playing the actual game, to be more specifically, when you get to this particular level, that not only does this usually becomes as one of the hardest worlds in the game, due to the forms of the lava segment, but also this world is going to be quite long. Like, way more longer than I thought it was. So, anyways, let's go in and do Cannonball! Well, nothing matters anyway, because obviously we just managed to get ourselves another gold bit for able to actually just to deliver to that particular bucket fella. So, and unfortunately I did somehow die right there. Because something's worth mentioning for is the fact that if you dare touch the lava, I believe you're able to take down 3 units of health, which I was like, oh, ouch. That sounds pretty intimidating throughout, especially noticeable because, well, relatively speaking, good luck trying to find every single, you know, collectibles on this world, especially noticeable about the fact that, well, sometimes it might be felt a bit confusing at first, with all that, you know, kind of a similar structure, but regardless of such though, when you get the hang of it though, it might not be too bad, although apart from the fact that until when it gets to the point whenever I decided able to actually just well, you probably already know what this is going. So anyways, let's do some more backflips and stupid little plugs. Oh, that's just great. I have to go all the way back there. Oh, jeez Louise. Because there's the thing about this level though, is the fact that I will have to admit though, I'm not a big fan of the lava segment of this level because it is so hard able to judge the distance sometimes, and on top of all that stuff though, certain enemy encounters can be a bit of a pain to deal with, but luckily though, we did manage to able to get our almost a fully regenerated health, I can assure you to that. So anyways, let's use the shock jump and able to use the actual beak drill to able to actually access to blistering. I can't remember what this particular room is called, although I think I should probably wait until whenever I decide able to get a game over on this room. So I'm guessing that might actually be something related to, yeah, we got ourselves the actual, the poison gas returning after the events of Bad Magic Bayou World, except the fact that, well, the reason why it's there this time, mainly with the forms of that particular objective we are doing. So in this case, we ended up in blistering buttons. Okay, so that's what it says anyway, on that particular location we're actually going to be entering into. And this particular mission objective is kind of fun. If you haven't played Banjo-Kazooie before, as well as Sonic Adventure, or if you managed able to experience the Egg Carrier Hub World, then simply you're gonna have to able to actually spell the actual correct name based off from the forms of which specific villain's name was. So in this case though, for example, we're going to be able to try to spell out Grunty, and if you're trying to spell it correctly, then we should able to get ourselves our glorious and gorgeous golden, you know, Jiggy to able to collect. So pretty awesome and pretty swell at the same time, so I'm very least grateful for that, for the sake of the forms of how the fact that, well, despite the fact that most other levels on the Game Boy Advance game give me sort of hard time, whenever I do manage to able to do like, well, I honestly have no idea why I just keep on thinking about certain things, because, I mean, let's face it though, it's the fact that since that we've almost nearly at the end of this particular Let's Play at this point right now, I mean, relatively speaking, we are definitely going to be getting there before we move on to, God knows, with another Banjo game, or even take a break on the Banjo-Kazooie series for a little while, until God knows if we decide able to do not only Banjo Pilot for the Game Boy Advance, or Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts for the Xbox 360, or Xbox One if you managed able to play as the forms of backwards compatibility, or in some cases though they did manage to able to include that game on Rare Replay compilation, so I guess that's kind of an obvious thing for the sake of the forms of how convenient that is. So alright, so let's go ahead and just switch over to these ice eggs, so just in case we can able to shoot those 2 targets right here, while trying to run on that particular, you know, the safety platform, so just in case, god dang it, I just somehow got hurt by that particular stupid lava ghost. But, oh well, at the very least we're able to actually respawn right back into whenever we're able to leave the previous room, so I guess that's fine, I guess. Especially noticeable because, well, relatively speaking about the fact that thankfully the checkpoints are super generous in this game, unlike in the console games that, well, usually relatively speaking that those two games does not have any checkpoints at all. So I can assure you about the fact that, well, it might be hard to explain. I will have to invent it though. Oh, and by the way, you can't use the actual invincibility golden leaf, or golden feathers rather, able to actually go through the lava because, well, that also hurts you too, so... Oh boy, this is gonna be quite tricky, I'm not gonna lie, especially noticeable about the fact that, I get it, this is the final main platforming level, because as far as I'm aware until later on though, then we can probably expect about the fact that what's gonna be coming up next, but either way though, let's go ahead and, you know, trying to jump, and then just gonna wait for a couple of seconds worth noting for, and then hopefully we should be able to hop on to the secret area. Oh, darn it! I didn't make it for that specific jump. Oh well, at least we got back up there again. Although, there's also a trick to this though, if you can't be bothered able to try to take a ride or something like that, either the forms of Tentar or anything else like that, from the likes of the, well, from Tarzan and stuff like that. I've no idea why I just managed to bring that up. But anyway, I got another game over. That's too much, I'm telling you. That's way too much game overs I've actually come across into. But anyway, here's the forms of the next boss, and if I'm guessing correctly, it's gonna be Klongo again. Yep, there he is right here. Just wait till Bear and Bird get taste of Klongo's new potion. Klongo turned them into matching set of Germalersis for Grunty's army. So yeah, we have ourselves our third match against with the forms of Klongo, which I'm pretty sure it plays out exactly like the forms of how it does on the previous counterparts, except now that every once in a while they managed able to start sending those little germ-like enemies and all that stuff, and oh jeez, they can really pack a punch if you managed able to be not careful with that stuff. Although there's actually a cool tip to this though, is the fact that you can able to actually get rid of them, well, as you probably already know, ever since and during the course of Bad Magic Bayou World, that in order to able to break free from those specific creatures, oh, and say applies to the forms of Spiller's Harper by the way, is the fact that you're gonna have to able to jiggle, or you're gonna have to press your directional pad on certain situations and all that stuff, which, either way though, seems kind of weird, but it knows what it is for the most part, So of course, just like before, he only has like 3 hit points, so we can able to expect we can able to take him down with like no sweat whatsoever, assuming if I was trying to able to be very cautious and be very careful throughout, so I can, at the very least, I can able to actually decide able to appreciate with that stuff, so... And also good thing about it as well, I guess, is the fact that another one of those films has been recently become 15 years old when it comes to forms of specific films, came out in 2007. I think I've already mentioned about the forms of the Simpsons movie already, so relatively speaking, happy 15th anniversary of the Simpsons movie's release. Like, most people keep on saying about the forms of the speculation of the sequel or something, but then again though, we'll have to wait and find out and during that certain point, during later on throughout, maybe during the forms of this year, or maybe in the future, but I digress. Bear and Bird not even catch cold? Klongo must remember to double strength of next potion. Oh, you really think about that, Klongo? I mean, surely you must be able to actually become a little bit more of improvement and all that stuff, maybe at some point later on. But anyway, in addition to get ourselves another Jiggy, but also we've stumbled across our final Mumbo token, which means, yeah, we were able to come across into our final transformation in the whole game. But we need to make our way to the actual Mumbo's hunt first before we're able to actually just play around with our one last transformation we can able to interact with. And son of a... Jeez, the depth perception is just... You know, it's so hard to judge the distance. Like, I just cannot judge the distance. Like, literally, I was gonna able to try and avoid certain objects, especially noticeable with the forms of certain enemy encounters here and there, but most of the time, I keep on find myself getting screwed over with all that, you know, trial and error platforming sometimes, especially noticeable in some levels like I have no idea. There are quite a lot of harder levels that you might able to actually experience with. If for those you ever experienced any other like hardcore kind of players or anything else like that, so... Oh jeez, I've no idea why I felt a little bit tired at this point today. Not just because of the forms of the heat wave was going on, but also, unfortunately though, I just cannot sleep well again. So you better have to forgive me about the fact that why my voice is actually getting a little bit off at this point. But anyway, so as you can see, we actually stumbled across our final transformation in the whole entire game. But before we do that though, let me go ahead and transform into Candle Banjo ever since in Bad Magic Bayou, because, well, remember those dynamites from earlier ago? Well, we can now able to blow them by simply using the forms of the actual, you know, Candle Banjo. So, at the very least, that's pretty cool at the very least. So, anyway, so now let's talk to him again, and I get the feeling we can probably able to show you guys what the new transformation actually looks like. So in this case though, let's go ahead and select the green tank. So yeah, it looks like we are transforming into a tank. Pretty cool, I might add, even though it does almost reminds me of the forms of the washing machine Banjo transformation in Banjo-Tooie, except the fact that rather than just trying to keep on shooting, you know, dry and clean pants and all that stuff, and on top of all that stuff though, with, you know, you have the ability to jump on the washing machine transformation. Whilst the tank, as you can tell, all it really does is basically you're able to actually shoot, and that's pretty much about it. However though, you cannot jump while trying to able to deal with that particular transformation, so keep that in mind anyway. And also we've managed to found the last Jinjo in this entire world. So, and of course let's not forget ourselves with the forms of that particular door that just usually appears. So yeah, remember the forms of how the fact that, remember what I said to you guys ever since and during the course of it about a week ago? That normally we could not able to actually 100% through everything in terms of the forms of Bad Magic Bayou. And that, right there, with those doors, is a prime example of this. Like, either way though, we'll point it out later, because for now, we need to go through a serious amount of platforms, and if you're trying to do the correct pattern, as you can tell, then you get yourself a jiggy in the process, which... Kind of think about it, those particular segments does remind me of this similar thing as the forms of how it does it on one of those mini-games from Mario Party Advance, except the fact that, well, technically this game came out first, and then as far as Mario Party Advance is concerned, only came out in 2005, the same year as in Mario Party 7 Roll Around for the Nintendo GameCube and the European PAL version of Mario Party 6, so... I guess that's something as usually decided to mentioning about that stuff though. Anyway, so let's go back in here, and I get the feeling we must able to actually transform into ourselves, let's just say, an octopus transformation, because since we can't do anything with Banjo alone for the sake of the forms of trying to able to swim onto this freezing water, because yeah, just like the forms of how it does it in Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, if you manage to able to try to hop into the forms of a very freezing cold water, basically though is the fact that I'm pretty sure you take damage. Thankfully, for the octopus transformation, as you can tell, no harm whatsoever. So at the very least, we can able to actually just to keep on exploring in this place now. And also, we've actually now come across into ourselves our final extra honeycomb piece. So that way, we'll now have the ability to able to complete our health storage when it comes to trying to deal with the forms of, well, suffice to say, the final frontier at some point later down the road, which... If you're probably wondering, yeah, I'm not gonna spoil things for this point because, well, for those who are the Kirby fans out there, might pretty much expect of what's going on or something like that. But anyway, let's just go ahead and get rid of that particular scorpion tail, which I seriously swear to God, the actual the damage output is a bit too high, but whatever. I'll take a death anyway because I somehow warped back in here after getting a game over, so I guess that should be okay. So anyways, let's transform back into, well, the bear form of Banjo himself. So, at the very least, we can now able to actually just, well, do some more things. Including, we still need able to get that specific Jiggy from the likes of trying to able to rescue every single Jinjos throughout the game. So, at the very least, that's something we must able to focus on at this point in time. So... I'm gonna say, I do really like the music in this level though, although, to be honest with you, I still kind of prefer Freezy Peak music from the likes of Banjo-Kazooie because of my nostalgia reasons, and on top of all that stuff though with Hellfire Peaks as well, because usually, relatively speaking, both of those games have the amazing soundtrack and all that stuff. But I don't know, something about the forms of Grunty's Revenge, well, it's alright for the most part. But most people don't usually care about the music as much, probably because it's the forms of how the fact that it's like a port compilation or something like that. Well, I honestly have no words to able to actually just trying to able to say things convenience or something like that. So. But anyway, now we've actually done in here, because obviously we've now actually got ourselves our next Jiggy. So, and I believe that particular Jinjo statue's now tells us to, is the fact that we must make our way to our final battle against with the forms of Gruntilda herself. To be more specifically, Mecha Gruntilda as far as that's been concerned with. Yeah, and by the way, if you dare touch those green stuff, you die instantly, so. To keep that in mind, because thanks to the forms of that exclamation mark shows us about the fact that it could be danger and stuff like that. So, yeah, it totally makes sense, because obviously we don't want to touch the actual waste, green, disgusting, goopy stuff, which, as a result though, I honestly have no idea why to somehow mention about that from the get-go anyway, but anyway. So let's go ahead and just head back, and now we've actually activated the shark jump pad, and that way we can now able to actually reach a bit higher up, especially noticeable about the fact that we can probably expect that we can able to actually just go ahead and, oh, come on! Okay, this is getting way too out of hand, especially with all that. Oh jeez, this stage is so hard, man. I just think that this stage is way too hard. It is so hard to able to actually just to know you're about to judge the distance. I mean, usually because of that though, it's just the fact that I can't really tell of when I was about to land on specific depth perception and everything. But luckily we somehow made it at the very least, so I might be so grateful with that stuff. Alright, so it looks like so far we've actually collected all 7 of those, well, those golden bits. So now we can able to actually just deliver it to her. And I get the feeling she will able to actually let those gold bits will turn into the forms of something very precious indeed. So, quick Banjo, give her the nuggets. She's looking a little pale. Great, so stand back and, well, watch her work. And there we go. It does kind of reminds me of the forms of in one of those mission objectives in Banjo-Tooie, that if you stumble across any forms of in the second world in the game, basically, if you come across into that huge rock that actually represents the actual Jiggy icon, and then if you're trying to able to deliver the actual breakable rock that actually features the Jiggy symbol, basically though is the fact that when it goes through the actual the saw blades or anything else to be more specific, basically the actual Jiggy itself will cut to pieces, which I will still say that's a pretty unique concept with that particular mission objective like that one right there. Especially noticeable about the fact that we can able to actually pick those up, and then hopefully you're able to actually fill up and then make it the actual Jiggy itself. So I appreciate about that, especially noticeable because, well, relatively speaking, that's as far as I can usually try to explain to them about this. Oh jeez, I almost first thought I was gonna fall off for a moment, but apparently I survived somehow, so I guess that's okay, I guess. But anyway, so I think we're pretty much done in here now, so thank the Lord. I think I will have to admit though, is the fact that the lava section of this world is by far the hardest segment of the game, because, well, it's just the fact that you will able to get a lot of game overs on this place so easily, so. Ah, oh, darn it! I accidentally rolled into that particular ice water. Hi. But still, that thankfully fits you know, infinite amount of lives, so this means that mostly you can die as many times you want to this time around, just like, you know, in Banjo-Tooie and all that stuff. I'm sure that I would classify for saying Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. I think that game also doesn't have the life system, I'm guessing. So anyways, let's have a look at the total so far. So it looks like we've collected everything except one more Jiggy we need to get, and 15 more left for the music notes. And once we're done with all that stuff, then we can pretty much expect that we're pretty much done with this entire world. So I couldn't imagine about the fact that this world will pretty much gonna took me about 40 minutes to complete after so many depth perception errors, especially noticeable with the forms of tons of depths here and there. And eventually, like I said, if we managed able to completely done with this entire world, then we can probably expect we can able to head back onto the third world until we're able to get ourselves our final Jiggy to collect, which is going to be involved surrounding the tank transformation. So it's a good thing that we've already managed able to you know, get that transformation now, so at the very least we can able to actually now finally try to complete everything in the game. So oh yeah, something's worth mentioning I forgot to mention about for this particular topic worth noting for is the fact that, well, yes, this game does have a file selection screen, although in order able to save the game, unlike the forms of how it does it on, well, at least I'm pretty much used to with the forms of the Xbox Live Arcade versions of, you know, Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie with those two games on the Xbox Live Arcade version, that normally the game saves automatically, whilst unlike the original N64 cartridge versions of Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, basically though is the fact that you have to able to keep pausing a game and then just trying to able to select, you know, save game if possible, so just in case your progression does not lost. So and it's a good thing we did manage to check on this final part of this particular world, because, well, it feels like that we've almost done with collecting every single music note throughout the whole game. So at the very least we can able to actually expect of what this is going. Well, despite the fact that we have to able to actually just try to dodge a lot of those scorpion tails, and also on top of that, some mine bombs everywhere, and, well, that might be seems a little bit more suggestive or something like that. I have no idea why I say things weirdly enough. But anyway, we got every single music note, and especially noticeable, we've actually collected every single Jiggies in Freezing Furnace. So, yeah, pretty swell, I have to say. Mind you, about the fact that this world only has one move to learn. So, and that's pretty much about it, really. So anyways, let's go ahead and proceed, and, okay. So yeah, that's what happens right there. If you manage to go further away from the actual world, and then basically the mumbo jumbo icon will show up, and this actually means is the fact that we must go into the forms of the actual HUD, because, you know, unlike Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, they can able to transform back into your normal self if you wanted to, like, completely if you managed able to go whatever you want to go. Like, you know, if you manage to go further away, then the magic will able to get a bit weaker. So yeah, that thing I can usually try to explain about that. So anyway, so now we're done with that, but like I said, we're about to be heading back onto this world right here, Bad Magic Bayou, to able to get ourselves our final Jiggy to collect. And again, in order able to actually get the final Jiggy in this world, well, best assured, we must able to equip ourselves the tank transformation, because, well, that way it will make it work. Especially noticeable about the fact that, well, I get the strong sense of feeling that what that particular mission objective is going to be involved around into. Well, if you're familiar with that, if you probably already saw that coming, at least ever since about a couple of minutes ago, since that we actually did manage to able to finally wrap things up for everything on that world. So anyway, so now we've made it onto this safe spot, and hopefully meet up with Mumbo Jumbo right here, and we can able to actually expect that we can able to actually just to transform into ourselves the, well, the tank form. So in this case though, no, I don't want to able to actually choose the mouse. I meant to choose the tank, but I've no idea why I just accidentally pressed my A button controller for my emulating controls and stuff like that, which, I honestly have no idea why I just somehow managed to jinx myself when it comes to that. Oh yeah, something's worth mentioning for this point as well, I guess, is the fact that, I can't even believe this, is the fact that it's been about, I don't know about you, it's like, oh, what was I trying to say here? About the fact the matter is though, it's been, an entire decade ago, is the fact that, relatively speaking, when it comes to, I do remember about the fact that when, Cap King 74 used to have his, birthday presents back in the forms of in 2012, such as, for instance, that he managed able to got himself Mario Tennis Open for the Nintendo 3DS, although despite the fact that he no longer had that game anymore. And on top of all that stuff though, Kingdom Hearts 3D, Dream Drop Distance, and my least favorite Pokemon movie, which is Pokemon Destiny Deoxys, which I know after 10 years later, I still hate it even to this day. Especially noticeable, that film to me feels a lot more, well, choppy, to say the least. Especially noticeable that the color scheme just feels a bit, I don't know about you, way off than I was expecting. So I guess that makes it a little bit obvious, quote unquote. You know, not my kind of thing, I guess, but there we go, folks. We've collected every single Jiggies in the whole entire game, so now we can able to actually leave this particular world. And the next thing we need to do is the fact that we need to able to upgrade ourselves our final, you know, honeycomb health until we're able to actually fully healthed up for able to prepare for the forms of the final battle awaits us. So yeah, we're actually getting pretty close towards the end of this game, basically, ladies and gentlemen. So, because, well, relatively speaking, I can't even believe it's been, well, despite it's a bit slow at points, especially noticeable with the forms of the limited movesets of, you know, in the beginning of the game, basically. But, throughout it, though, is the fact that we can able to expect that the more moves we've learned, then obviously that the more, the progression gets a tad better, so anyways, let's leave here, and, well, head over back into Spiral Mountain, and I think, relatively speaking, we can probably expect able to meet up with Jiggy Wiggy for the final time. Although, before we do that, actually, let me quickly go ahead and, actually, gotta think about it, let me go ahead and, try to able to actually just, yeah, just try to go back into the temple for the final time, Jiggy Wiggy's temple for the final time. So, yeah, we able to actually got enough of those Jiggies, so that way we can now able to actually access to, the final altar to able to actually open up the, well, the final battle awaits us against with, Mecha Gruntilda in the actual Gruntilda's castle. So, at least despite the fact that it's usually somewhat feels a bit kind of similar design when it comes to the forms of the original Banjo-Kazooie when it comes to make our way to Gruntilda's lair, except now it's actually on the top hat, so yeah, it seems kind of strange. So again, you don't need to necessarily try to able to 100% everything because, well, I think like I said, in order to able to actually get access to the final bit of the game, you have to collect about roughly 50 of those Jiggies, and that's pretty much about it as far as progression goes. So, anyways, let's meet with the Honeybee for the final time in this game, and we're now able to get ourselves 8 units of health. So, how's that for that one? And let's have a look at the totals so far. So yeah, it looks like we've basically 100% in each and every single world. So in this case, we've completed, you know, all 6 worlds. So yeah, at least technically with Spiral Mountain's case as well. So at the very least, that's something, I guess. So yeah, everything else goes a lot more smoothly as far as that's been concerned with. Even though despite the fact that my laptop is a bit lagging, but regardless of such though, it still runs quite smoothly on my capture recording for this game so far. So, anyways, it's time to melt those, or trying to get rid of the fire, while simply just trying to able to... Although before we do that, let me quickly go ahead and melt this ice block right there, so that way it can actually reveal the shock jump up there. And somehow we need to activate that one over there by trying to able to, let's just say, shoot the actual ice egg in order to able to actually activate the actual another shock jump until we're able to actually make our way up there. And are you kidding me? The fireballs respawn. Oh, that's a bit unfair. Especially noticeable about the fact that, well, every once in a while, there might be some objects or certain enemies might actually respawn from time to time. I mean, that usually happens most of the time. I mean, surely that's... Well, I could honestly try to think about it, but anyway. Alright, so it's got to be very... Oh, come on. Ah! Oh my god, the knockback is always kind of annoying sometimes in this game though, even though... I'm pretty sure that you don't get the invincibility frames neither, so because of that though, you always have to force to deal with the forms of some archaic design choices sometimes, so... Because I know for the fact that unlike Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, that's unfortunately though, you have to deal with the forms of a very irritating knockback, and not only that, the lack of invincibility frames if you're not careful, so... Anyway, it's time to switch and shoot the ice egg right over there, and that should able to reveal the shark jump just right up there. And we need to hurry this up because it's a time limit, so... And I think we've made it. So, I think suffice to say for this point, earlier on for this point guys, I think we should probably end things off here, so join me next time for more of Let's Play of Banjo-Kazooie, Grunty's Revenge. It'll be the finale, but able to actually face off against with Mecha Grunty for the final time. So I'll see you guys on Thursday. Later fellas.